Cheat Code Support Strategist by myheadinthecoudsnotcomingdown. Read by Rat Overlord. Chapter 17 Abduction. Summary: Shinso meets half of the Chaos Duo. Isuku leaned back in his seat after finishing up the list of theories he'd been working on. He'd spent the morning reviewing the videos he had of the hero students and making a rough list of potential ideas for improvement that he could clean up on once he'd seen their quirks in action a little more. But for now, there wasn't much else he could do on that project, which meant that it was time for extra credit kun. Oh god, May really was starting to rub off on him, wasn't she? Isuku shook his head with a chuckle as he grabbed the notebook he'd dedicated to their extra credit project and opened Shinso's file, only to realize that he was at a dead end there as well. At least with the hero students, he had some combat videos to analyze, but all Isuku had for Shinso was his student file and the video of his entrance exam, which obviously didn't show the full potential of his quirk because he couldn't use it on robots. If Isuku wanted his analysis to be of any use to Shinso at all, he needed more information. The easiest way to get that information would be to simply ask and hope that Shinso wouldn't be too creeped out to answer him. Well, even if he was creeped out, he'd probably still answer if Isuku explained that it was to help him do better in the sports festival. Anyways, it didn't really matter because he was probably in class right now. But it wouldn't hurt to check, right? Before he could second-guess himself, Isuku opened up the class schedule for Class 1C. Even if Shinso was in class, which he should be, it would still be helpful to know his schedule so he and May could track him down later. Speaking of May, she chose that moment to burst through the door at Isuku's workroom without knocking. She didn't even wait for him to look up before she had draped herself over his shoulders, groaning dramatically. "Izu-kun, help! I can't make Shinso's babies!" Isuku snorted. Most girls actually have to meet the guy before creating his children. May grabbed his shoulder and spun his chair around so that he was facing her and could see the manic grin that had just spread across her face. "That's a brilliant idea!" Isuku smiled and shook his head fondly. "Let me guess, you need more info on his quirk and fighting style before you can really get started." "Yep!" May picked an empty spot on Isuku's desk and sat down. "You too?" Isuku nodded and turned back to his screen. "I was just looking up his schedule to see when the best time to meet him would be." "Well, make it ASAP!" May said impatiently. "I want to start making babies!" "You can't just rush these things, May-chan. It isn't polite," Isuku told her patiently. "We can't just take him out of class. Or maybe we can." May jumped off his desk and leaned over his shoulder. "Wait, what is it?" "He has a study period right now." Isuku pointed to the screen. "If we got Power Loader's permission, we could probably pull him out of class for a few minutes, since he wouldn't actually be missing any lessons." "Let's do it!" May hugged him tightly before pulling him to his feet and pushing him towards the door. "What are you waiting for? I have babies to make!" Their classmates glanced up at May's declaration as the door opened, but they spared the two less than a second before shaking their heads and going back to work on their own projects. Isuku still thought it was a little weird how quickly the class had seemed to just accept their antics, but he was never one to look a gift horse in the mouth. He had May, and that was enough for him right now. He'd probably just manage to work himself into an anxiety attack if he tried to second-guess every interaction he'd have with his classmates looking for ways that they actually hated him, and honestly, he was too busy with his analysis projects to have any time for that right now. It didn't take them long at all to reach Power Loader's desk, especially not with May still pushing him in her excitement. Power Loader simply sighed and looked up at them as they approached. "Should I be concerned about what you two are cooking up?" "No!" Isuku said at the same time that May shouted, "Yes!" Unfortunately, May's voice was just a little louder. We just wanted to ask Shinso some questions about his quirk," Isuku said quickly. "I looked and he has a study period right now, so we were hoping we could borrow him and bring him here. We'd use my workroom so we wouldn't bother any of the other students. Please?" Isuku had learned his puppy dog eyes from his mom, and honestly, he wasn't even aware that he was doing them until he caught May mimicking his expression out of the corner of his eye. Power Loader simply looked at them tiredly for a long moment before caving.
Midoriya, you go and get him. I'm not sure I trust May to not blow something up between here and there.
Come on! It's not like there are that many explosive things between here and the General Education Department, May exclaimed. Just the wiring and probably the fire extinguishers if you count foam as an explosion. Oh, and the security system! Izuku, do you know if there are any bombs in the security system?
Yeah, it's probably for the best if I just go, Izuku said, ignoring the way that May pouted at him as he turned back to Power Loader. Could I have a note explaining the situation in case Shinso's teacher asks why I need him? President Mike should already be expecting you, Power Loader said tiredly. I mentioned your little project to the other teachers and warned him that it was only a matter of time before you dropped by. Oh. Izuku didn't know if that was good or bad that the entire faculty knew about their plans to help Shinso. Honestly, he'd never had teachers care about what he wanted to do before, so this was all new territory for him. That's good then. Power Loader nodded. Get back quick before Hatsume blows up our lab again. May cackled and ran back towards her desk.
Good luck!
Hitoshi tapped his pencil idly on his notebook as he reviewed English verb structure for the third time. Not that having a second language wouldn't be useful, but he couldn't help thinking that the hero students were probably training right now and getting more and more of an unfair advantage every minute that Hitoshi spent studying academics. There was only so long until the sports festival and his last chance to get into the hero course, so he didn't want to waste any time. The silence of the classroom was interrupted by a quiet knocking on the door, and a tiny-looking kid with tangled green curls and large eyes poked his head in. President Mike, sir? Would it be all right if I borrowed Shinso for a few minutes? Hitoshi froze as his entire class swiveled in their seats to look at him curiously, as if he had any idea why a kid he'd never seen before in his life was interrupting his class by asking for him by name. His classmates' curiosity was almost palpable as Mike-sensei looked up from the desk and gave the boy a mischievous grin.
You're one of Power Loader's gremlins, aren't you?
The kid sputtered for a moment at Mike's wording before apparently giving up on being embarrassed and letting out a sigh as he walked fully into the room. Yes, sir. He said that he mentioned things to you.
Of course!
Mike grinned.
Shinso, go ahead and grab your things. There is no guarantee that you'll be back by the end of class.
As Hitoshi hurried to comply, Mike turned back to the kid.
Try and return him in one piece, you dig?
Hitoshi's eyes widened, and he felt himself pale slightly as the kid returned Mike's smile with a small one of his own. No guarantees. I'm not the one you need to be worried about, but also I'm not responsible for anything Mei-chan does when she's excited.
Ooh!
Mike laughed.
I can see why Nezu likes you so much.
The class erupted into whispers, and Hitoshi was starting to wonder if he would just have a better chance of surviving if he just jumped out the window. Mike-sensei wouldn't actually let this mystery kid, or whoever this Mei-chan person was, hurt him, right? Hitoshi finished packing his bag and gulped as the kid smiled at him. Normally, a bright smile like that would put him more at ease, but after hearing the kid basically plot his murder, it just looked vaguely terrifying. Reluctantly, Hitoshi followed his kidnapper? Was that what the kid was? What was even happening? His kidnapper didn't say anything as he led Hitoshi down the hallway to a part of the school that he didn't recognize. Not that that was helpful at all, considering he'd only been at UA for less than a week. He had no idea what was happening anymore, and honestly, he was too afraid to ask. All he knew was that this kid very well might kill him, and his teacher wouldn't even care. So much for teachers at UA being different. His kidnappers still didn't break the silence, and as they got even more lost in the maze that was UA, Shinso eventually got fed up and decided that if he was going to get murdered anyways, it wouldn't hurt to at least ask this kid why he'd kidnapped him. At the worst, he'd just get killed a little sooner, right? Hitoshi's voice sounded too loud, and he had to take a step back as the kid pinned him with those wide eyes, giving Hitoshi a strange sense that this kid knew everything about him and was simply dissecting him with his gaze. I have a few questions. The kid smiled brightly again. Of course! I might not be able to give the best answers, but I'll try. Okay. Hitoshi took a breath. Who are you? Where are we going? Why did you just kidnap me? Finally, who is Mei-chan, and should I be writing my will?
The kid looked at him in shock for a long moment before he started giggling uncontrollably.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I didn't, and completely forgot to introduce myself, so no wonder you're... And Prismite called me a gremlin, which probably didn't help anything. This is probably why our classmates are terrified of us, huh?
Probably, Shinso said, not because he knew this kid's classmates, but more because he didn't really have any other response besides that.
So?
Right! The kid jumped slightly and started walking into the labyrinth that was UA again. My name is Isuku Midoriya, and we're heading back to my classroom. Mei-chan is my best friend. She probably won't hurt you. She just gets really excited about her inventions, and they don't always work the first time, which isn't bad. You just need to be a little careful in case they explode unexpectedly. We're support students, obviously, since Mei-chan has inventions to explode. What else? Oddly enough, Midoriya's rambling was actually calming. It made him seem less like a mysterious psychopath, so Hitoshi actually found himself feeling a little more at ease as he cocked an eyebrow.
Why'd you kidnap me?
Midoriya furrowed his forehead as his voice dropped into a mutter. I didn't. Why would I? Well, I guess I did kind of steal you away unexpectedly, but that wasn't.
Midoriya.
Hitoshi interrupted the kid's mutter storm and gestured for him to continue.
Why did you kidnap me?
Midoriya chuckled awkwardly and rubbed the back of his neck. I don't want to get into too much detail without Mei-chan here, but basically we're going to get you into the hero course.
What?